Hi, my name is Yacht. I've explored many countries and lived in Australia, France, Florida, and Hawaii. Follow me as I explore the world on my quest to find a special place that my family will one day call home. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. So the next stop on my tour of Portugal was Sines, down in the Alentejo area. So I ended up stopping by Sines on my way down to the Algarve and spent half of a day there. I didn't really spend extensive time there just due to the the lack of activities that I thought over there, and just based off of doing my research and kind of planning the whole trip and exploratory trip. So I wanted to at least spend some time there because I think the Alentejo has everything I want visually speaking. It's just I have a family, so there are some other things that I need to consider when looking at a place and exploring and making sure that it can meet the requirements of my family. So I didn't spend too much time there, but I did have a really great time there, and I think it could be a city that most folks could actually consider. It did have a lot going for it. So, I'll touch on the pros and the cons, and then also, weave in my impressions along the way of certain things. So, I'll start off with the pros. The pros is that the very first thing when I landed there, when I arrived in Sines, was just the diversity. Within the first 5 minutes, I saw plenty of people of color, which is kind of shocking. You would think it'd be more diverse in bigger cities, but yeah, it was really cool to see diversity within the first 5 minutes. My first stop at the gas station, the local restaurants, and which I'll touch on in a bit. But yeah, it was pleasantly surprising, and that's one of the things I also looked for because my kids are diverse, and I want them to be in a diverse place that they can learn from other people, other backgrounds, and have different experiences and different cultures, and I want them to grow up in a melting pot. So it's it's very high on my list when it comes to deciding on whether or not to relocate to a particular place. So just the diversity was major when I first arrived. I ended up parking near the historical center and the Praia de Vasco da Gama, that beach along the promenade, which is gorgeous, by the way. It kind of has a backdrop of a marina and then the sand, and so it's a really nice spot. It looks visually appealing to a certain extent, which I'll touch on a little bit, but it's overall visually appealing. You have big rocks coming out from on the left hand side of the ocean, and it just looks really cool. And when I got there, the sun was directly over the beach and in the marina, so the water was just glistening like a silvery fish scale type of thing. It was very, very pretty. And so I ended up just walking around the historical center and saw the Vasco da Gama statue, and saw the fort there. Well, I wouldn't say the fort, but the castle of Sines. It was very, very pretty. It was very, very pretty. I enjoyed walking around there. I checked out the museum they had there at Sines and just walked around for hours. It was just visually appealing. I also looked at some of the schools, and which was, I'll touch on a little bit later, but, just look at the schools, the shopping, what they had there, and it was pretty good. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised of the visual aspect of Sines and how pretty it was as a town. The next The next thing that I'll touch on are the restaurants. Food. What are there to eat? So I guess I can touch on the shopping first, the food shopping. I mean, they have everything you want. As soon as you come into the city, there's a Continent, there's a Intermarché, a Pingo Doce, there's a Lidl, there's a Wharton's, which is like home goods and stuff like that. There's also a Brico Marché, which is like a building supply store. So if you want to do home renovations, or you just need something to fix up your crib, it has those things there, which was really nice to see. So shopping is great. Restaurants, since it's a diverse city, I found quite a bit of stuff. Indian restaurants, which I love Indian food. I'm sure you can probably tell that. But my favorite food is Thai, but Indian, by far, I had the best Indian food in my life in Portugal. I didn't have a bad meal in all the stops that I made and all the places that I stayed during my time in Portugal. So it was legit. It was legit. But I digress. So back to food. Lots of options, lots of restaurants. Hell, for us American folks, they even had a Burger King, which I did try out. And they do have some interesting menu items that we don't have here in the U.S., which was really good to try. And I tried a few of them. I was stuffing my face, and it was pretty good. So I will have to say that it's for American people. You always try to find some comfort, and one of the things is food, our food. So having a Burger King, there's a McDonald's, but there are a lot of other ethnic restaurants in the city and around the historical downtown. As far as like clothes shopping, there isn't a lot, which which I also kind of see as a con, but there is like a little shopping plaza, or they have some department stores and stuff like that. It has a cinema, food restaurants, like a good pizzeria that everyone talks about and raves about. And but it was quite dead. It seemed underutilized, and there were a lot of empty stores and stuff like that. So I'm sure the pandemic didn't help, but it was that place could be really, really cool. If people start going back to that area, shops start to repopulate that area. So it was a little bit of downer, and that was one of the things that you have to kind of consider, is that if you need something, clothing wise, or that you would typically get from like a department store, you probably have to just order it from Amazon. So that's definitely something to consider. For families and single people, I guess I'll start with single people first. There are some restaurants and bars. I didn't really find any like nightclubs or anything, so I'm not single, so that's not something I really look for. But there could be some in the area. I just don't know. So that could be something that singles would have to look into. But I did see quite a bit of people. So it's pleasantly surprising. So I'm sure there's probably some dating sites or whatever, Tinder, that you can probably utilize to find other singles. But for families, one of the main things that we look at were with the schools. There aren't particularly any public schools or international schools there. You either have to go back up to like Setúbal area, or all the way down to Algarve, Algarve. I guess that's pronouncing it correctly, but I think those are the closest international schools per se. There are no private schools, but the public school there, from the research that I did, it seems to be pretty good. I think it would be adequate, if someone decided that Sines area was just right for them, because it does have a lot of good things to offer. It could be a good option. It's a public school, but it seemed to be adequate. It seemed to be pretty good for U.S. standards, because I know, it's a thing that a lot of Americans have to consider is that, they may not be there forever. So you need to have a curriculum for your kids that will be transferable to another country or back to the US, or whatever. You just have to plan for that stuff. You never know what's going to happen in life. So that's one of the things that you have to take into consideration. But, so the school was pretty good. It could be an option. And then I think the major thing that I liked about Sines was, in fact, the beaches. I did touch on the beach a little bit, the local beach right there off of the historical center, Praia Vasco da Gama. It was pretty, but as I mentioned, there was a little thing that I didn't like about it, and that was the backdrop, which I'll, touch on in a bit. But the beaches around there, pretty much from Sines all the way to Vila Nova de Mil Fontes. I guess I'm pronouncing that correctly. All the beaches along that coast are beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful. I spent maybe an hour and a half just hanging out there on my way down to the Algarve, and I didn't want to leave. It was that amazing. I mean, rocks jutting out of the ocean. You get sunsets because it's along the Atlantic coast, the western coast. So it is amazing. And there was hardly anybody there. I'm sure it gets kind of crazy during the summer or during the tourist season, but during the winter, it was just fine. It was great. It was great. Didn't want to leave. But yeah, those are all the pros that I found during my time there in Sines. It did have a couple cons, and only a couple, to be honest. And the first con was the refinery there. I think it's an oil refinery or something like that. You can see that as soon as you start coming into the town of Sines. Driving in, you see all these huge pipes and etc. And it's just a huge eyesore. And that was the other thing when you're at the beach or Praia Vasco da Gama. You see this gorgeous beach and marina, but then in the backdrop, you see these massive pipes. And you see this massive refinery. And then you also see this the terminal for the shipping. And it's just a huge eyesore. I understand, business is business. I'm sure it helps to bring some jobs in that area, but it's a huge eyesore. And then there was a smell in the historical center that you can kind of smell coming from the vents and the pipes along the streets. And I don't know what it was, but it didn't smell great at all. So it could be something you have to get used to. Maybe it just could have been that day that I was there that it didn't smell great. And yeah, it was a little off-putting, but I mean, I think I could get past it because it had so many other pros of being in Sines. So definitely something to be aware of if you're considering making Sines your home. And then the last con that I had was, it didn't have a huge international presence as far as the schools, as I mentioned before. So other than that, man, the beaches, it was great. Overall, if I had to grade that place, I would give it like a B. I really like it. It's charming. The vibe was good. The people I met were very friendly. There was diversity. There were, it seems to be a cheaper area. So I guess you just don't have that influx of tourism that kind of pushes and increases the prices up. So it could be a pretty cool spot to kind of get in and enjoy your time there at a low cost of living. So definitely check out Sines if you get a chance and get a little bit more time. I just didn't have a lot of time in my time in Portugal. I was only there for 10, 11 days, something like that. So I tried to squeeze in too much, and I actually ran out of time. But once again, thank you guys for checking out the channel and sticking by. I'll include the rest of the footage after this commentary. And once again, thank you, and Please be on the lookout for my following videos. Thanks. Bye.
Quick view from the castle in Sines.